Hello and welcome to MalMakes. Today we're painting a scene from Duck Hunt. This is the full version. If you're interested in the time-lapse, you can click on the card here. Otherwise, let's get started. My plan is to take the objects from Duck Hunt and the composition and make them more realistic, like actual tree bark. The grass will be rendered with texture, the leaves, the dirt, there'll be clouds in the sky. And the duck itself I'm going to draw in after a real mallard duck flying instead of the sprite. But I'm going to give it the colors of that blue-purple duck that's in the game just because it's really unique and it makes it Duck Hunt. So the first thing I'm starting with is I'm mixing up a light blue out of cyan and titanium white. And then I'm going to start painting that across the top of my canvas and fade it to a lighter blue as I go down. While this is still wet, I'm going to start adding in clouds. So I'm switching to a round brush and just grabbing some more titanium white, and then I'm going to kind of start to blot them in using a little bit of a circular motion here. And I want them to be pure titanium white towards the top and then kind of fade into this lighter blue at the bottom. I drew in some guidelines for myself using the T-square. I figured out how much dirt I want to be down at the bottom of the canvas, and then I drew a line, and then I did another line up here to show how tall I want the grass to go. That line isn't going to be perfect, like the grass isn't all going to be perfectly to that line, or it wouldn't look like grass, but that's about how tall I want it to be across the canvas. I also drew in a guideline for the center line of the tree, and I'm going to kind of build the tree around this line. Now, of course, as things come to the right and the left, it's going to kind of get a little unbalanced, but this is where I want the main trunk to come up. The first layer of this tree trunk is going to be a burnt sienna magenta mix, and I'm going to fill in the entire tree trunk with it first, and then we'll work on texture. I'm doing the value as I do the texture because I can't really do texture unless there's value. There needs to be light parts and dark parts, otherwise it's just a flat color. So my light source is going to kind of be like out here, casting light directly onto this tree. And I'm going to add little bits of Mars black on the bottom sides of all of these left ones, and in the right ones it's going to just be even less Mars black. Then I'm going to move into burnt umber, burnt sienna, Titan buff. I have some Jenkins green for more shadows, kind of working in the dark colors, moving towards the light ones. I'm using green for my shadows and warmer colors for my highlights because this is actually quite red in the game. I'm going to keep it more on the red side of brown. The key to doing this is just building up lots of layers. So I did the lines with the Mars Black, Jenkins Green, I used some Phthalo Green, I'm on to Burnt Umber right now, and as with all of them, I'm just kind of drawing some lines following the flow of the bark, kind of like up these branches, up the main part of the trunk, and I'm going to keep doing that with all my layers. I'm just going to kind of focus the lighter colors where I want the highlights to be, and focus the darker colors where the shadows are. That's not to say there shouldn't be some darkness in the other parts, kind of like in the deep crevices of the bark, but that's just where I'm focusing those colors. I've used the chalk to draw in circles of where I kind of want the foliage to go. Now I've mixed up a lot of different greens. The first one that I have is I made a green, and then I added a little bit of red to make it a little more neutral, so it's a little bit more of an olive. And then I added some Mars Black to make it darker. And this is going to be my base layer. So I'm only going to put a little bit on my brush, and then I'm going to go into these circles and just kind of tap it in, leaving some negative space, letting it be kind of fuzzy. And I'm going to do that in all of these spaces. I like using the flat for this because if I need to, if I'm getting too many like straight lines, I can turn it on its side and start to tap it in that way to kind of fill in and make it look less like lines. The other thing I'm going to do when I have all these colors is this bush that's over here. So I'm taking that dark color and kind of doing the same thing, but towards the center it's going to be a lot more opaque with less negative space. From here, I'm just layering my lighter greens on top of this, going from darkest to lightest. Now I want to keep all of this negative space while building some more negative space to show the dark through. So I'm going to do just the same thing. Just get a little bit of this on my brush and then go in here and kind of just tap it in on top. The dirt is going to be next in painting order because I want the grass to kind of come down a little bit on top and have the dirt kind of go back into the grasses a little bit. That should come next. So I'm going to use my base layer I used for the tree trunks to fill that in. I'm using Titan Buff, Burnt Sienna, Burnt Umber, and a little bit of Cad Yellow to bring in some of the value for this dirt. Now I'm just going to kind of use a lot of the colors and streak them back and forth, trying to keep the darker ones towards the top where the grass is going to cast shadows, and the lighter ones towards the bottom. Just like the trees, this is all about layering, and it's a little bit different than the trees where I'm going to be starting with a lighter color instead of a darker color. So I'm picking kind of this medium green I've made, and I'm going to start by kind of picking a spot in the middle of the green that I have so far, and then just bringing it up and trying to just make it look natural like grass should be. And I'm going to vary it up. Some might be a little bit shorter, some might be a little bit taller. But what I want to do is start to create some negative space in here so you can see just a little bit of sky through it. One of my goals doing this is to start to hide this line where the dark green is and where the sky is. Now it's not going to all happen in one color, but I'm trying to start doing that so it won't be visible in the final painting. With the grass, I'm using a little bit of brown. So I took some of my regular greens and just added a little bit of brown to it to kind of give it this olive color. I'm also using a little bit of red to tone it down, and I'm kind of trying to stay on the yellow side of green instead of the blue side like I did for the leaves, just to make it look a little bit different so you can see a difference when it overlaps over here. There's a ton of layers in this grass, and I really like all the colors and the layering that's happened from it. But the only problem I have is the shadow underneath the grass here. It should be darker than any of the shadow here. So I've taken that base brown, and it's kind of an orangish brown, and used a complement of blue to darken it up a bit. And I'm going to use that to bring in shadows underneath all of this grass. And I'm just going to be very careful and kind of fill in back here with this bluish brown color. After the duck was drawn in with chalk, I used some liquid acrylic to kind of block it in, to kind of prime it so I don't see any of the blue into my other colors. And now I'm just taking my base colors and blocking it in solid. So like this is the orange I've mixed up out of primary yellow and a little bit of magenta, and I'm going to just fill in the feet and the beak with this. I've also mixed up kind of a blue-violet for the body and then a light magenta for the head. And we're done! We have a realistic interpretation of Duck Hunt. If you're interested in this piece, you could buy a poster or a phone case, or bid on this original canvas. There's links down below. Also, consider supporting me on Patreon. You can find out more at supportmal.com. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss future episodes of MalMakes, and I'll see you again here for another video game painting.